Bonsoir. Bonsoir, on va commencer le Q&A avec Sean Linden, réalisateur du film Nobody, qui vient d'être projeté dans la salle 2. Prenez place, mesdames et messieurs, il y a encore beaucoup de place, il y a encore des chaises libres.
So we can start off here.
Sure.
With the first question.
Just a small technical problem that we had in the beginning, Sean.
Yes, the technical problem, just to make it clear, that was me. That was not the festival. Our D-Beta copy must not have been compressed properly. So it was solved in the first couple of minutes, but I never got to see the copy before it got sent out. So not the fault of the festival, fault of the filmmaker.
Okay, maybe a first question that's a little bit a technical one. Something that's surprised me in your movie, pleasantly surprised me, not only in your movie, but in quite a few movies, first movies we saw this year at the festival, was actually how beautiful they looked. And this movie has a really particular beautiful look. So with a small budget, was it hard to get it that look that way?
It was hard. It was very well planned out from the very start. We thought, because we didn't have much money, it better have kind of a unique look, and everything was shot listed and storyboarded long before the film was made. Just because we knew that we had very, very little money, and there wouldn't be much time to think on our feet, and if there was something that came up, well, then we would deal with it and then get back to our game plan. But yeah, it was a definite look that we were going for, kind of a comic bookish, lots of nice velocity, moving shots and things like that. And it's also too, we took great pains to make sure that we hid the fact that it was shot in standard definition, just an Panasonic SDX camera. Which I personally really dislike the look of video, even HD. C'est pas pour moi. Alors, my day job, I've worked for the last 8 years in films that are much bigger than mine. Things like Capote and The Lookout, and a lot of big movies that had that shot in my city. I work as a props master and a set decorator, and through all of that, we've been around HD since it started, and through all of these productions, we get to see what doesn't work just by watching other directors and other DOPs. So we took great caution to make sure that even in the writing of the script, that nothing in the scenario would ever bring us into a point where we would be showing those kinds of flaws. And so hopefully it didn't look too bad. We didn't have a real DOP. He had to take a paying job 5 days before we started. So most of the lighting and the camera work were picked up by myself and my first camera op, who's a very good friend of mine, Len Peterson, and the two of us basically kind of hashed out the look emergency style.
Now, about the storytelling in your film, it's rather complicated, I think we can say, and you have lots of repeated scenes, and also, I suppose, the same scenes shown again, just from a different angle. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask about that. Is it really always like that, or did you have to shoot certain scenes again?
Well, the idea behind it was I knew that I wouldn't be able to find much more money than what I could personally put into it, and so I wanted to je voulais jouer avec les gros gars, manger à la table des adultes. I've never made a short film before, and I knew that I would either have the chance to I would have enough to make either a quality short film, or find a way to incorporate some way of expanding a story into a feature film without making any kind of concessions, and turning those kinds of flaws into actually some of the defining points of the movie. So essentially what the film is a 20-minute story block that's been folded over 3 times or 25 or half an hour minutes, or half hour story block this 3 times into a full length film. So that was the main idea behind the repetitions.
It's a good idea, but it's not. Is it really as easy as it sounds? Because you still need several cameras, I think. And
oh no, we just had one camera, so it was easy because by repeating everything and by using the main character is actually 2 or 3 people at any given time. We were able to limit what we needed to have, and so limit our costs and things like that. And so, a full day could be spent in Clarence's office, and a full day can be spent in the boat, and things like that. And we could do an extraordinary amount of stuff during the day, and wind up making a feature-length film in 3 weeks. So it was in terms of writing it and finding the logic, it was very hard to find the opening equation. But once you had the first 20 minutes locked down logically, then basically it followed through like algebra. It could only go a certain way because all of the answers were already in the first 20 minutes, half an hour. So it was really hard to find a logical, closed circle for the first 20 minutes. But then it was a piece of cake doing the rest. Yeah.
Maybe a last technical question before we go into the story is, I once saw the DVD of the John Dahl movie, You Kill Me, and then you see like special effects crew, you see many guys, and actually all the snow was fake. But in your movie, the snow on the ice is actually real.
Yes. So. Well, You Kill Me, some of the snow was real. That was actually shot in Winnipeg as well. I didn't work on that film. I was too busy working on mine. But yeah, the snow, it was incredibly cold. The camera needed a bigger coat than all of the rest of the humans. It was literally down to, minus 45 and between minus 40 and minus 45 all the time. And it's very hard to keep volunteers in that kind of weather. But yes, I mean, in the movie you see a lot of fog and things like that and mist. We had one, it was called a Hesse, just a little hand fog machine. The rest is just air that's so cold that you can see it. It was completely bitterly freezing. I wouldn't have done it for free. Well, I mean, I did do it for free, but if it wasn't mine, I wouldn't have been there.
Well, I have a first question about the story, and I must say it's a difficult one to ask because I actually I'm not quite sure of the role played by the what she called the witch exactly. What exactly is she doing? I must admit I didn't quite grasp it.
The witch's name in the credits, it's never been able to be mentioned in the story, but the witch's name is Machina, which is the Latin for machine. It was derived from Deus ex machina. She's the god in the machine. She's essentially the movie. She's the one who causes everything to go through this loop by either opening this door or locking this and forcing them psychologically to go into this loop. And then by the end of it, you realize that she's actually the whole point of the film is just for her to get another dollar. And then, she's the film itself. A film is here to make kind of a buck and then to play again for somebody else. So it was kind of a little bit of a nudge in the ribs to the audience in a very nice way, like, haha, I got your dollar.
Yeah, because also I was trying to analyze it in all different ways. It's just like Indian mythology, Greek mythology with the dollars, and in the end, it's just a scam.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Well, the whole movie is essentially an elaborate scam, but she's kind of a composite of the. She was supposed to be an archetype of when stories were born. Like when stories had started. So she has much of the Greek kind of oracle or Greek chorus to her and, the blind oracle. But then you realize that it's just all for a buck, which is...
But then again, she does want to point out that, I wrote it actually down, the world is irrational and absurd. And so maybe the story is a scam, but then life is a scam, right?
Yes, yes. You said that, not me. But yeah, it's kind of making the whole film is slightly a satire because it's meant to subvert everything that it uses by showing that these genres are essentially empty. By making a closed circle of a story, it becomes baseless. There's nothing rooting it to anything real, and so it subverts anything that it portrays. And so it's showing basically that everything is fake. That there's no real concrete earthy rootness to anything.
Yes, because you already mentioned that once we got the basic plot, first 20 minutes, once we got that structure, the rest was easy. But once you get started with time paradoxes, I guess everybody must stay very much awake in the editing room to make the whole thing work.
Oh, I feel sorry for our editor just because of the ways that it had to be, because it's confusing as it is, but if it was not handled in a very exact way, then it would have been confusing to the point of being very uninteresting. And that was the biggest fear that I had, is that maybe I was making a film or a story that was so obtuse that nobody would care to pay attention to it. So hopefully that was not the case.
Misschien zijn er toch al vragen in het publiek, des questions dans le public. Il y a quelqu'un? We have a big movie in Theater 1 and they all scramble to that movie. That's always the bad thing, having it being in between.
I'm just really glad that there were so many people in the theater and I didn't see a whole lot of people walk out. So, I mean, it can't be all bad.
And about that, I think the movie's been in several festivals already in North America.
Yeah, it's been in about 20 festivals, mostly in North America. It's won 10 awards and things like that. I never got to win any awards in sports or things like that when I was a kid, so I'm really happy now whenever I get one more to put on a shelf.
And the actors, Costas Mandylor and Edo Raza, how did you get them involved?
Through Costa. Costas was he was a friend of a friend, and we had either the choice of, because we couldn't get, there's ACTRA, which is an acting union in Canada. We couldn't get an acting contract with ACTRA, so we couldn't use professional actors from our city. So I was stuck between finding non-actors and going to Hollywood and seeing if anybody would do it for no money. And so we wound up calling Costas up, and we kind of took him to dinner in Vancouver. My brother has a restaurant. He's an excellent chef. And Costas had said, if the script's anywhere near as good as the food, I'll do it. And he phoned me up the next day and said, yeah, whatever, I'll do it for sure. And for the character of Rollo, I realized there was no way we could get a non-actor to. It took maybe even more acting chops than Costas's character himself, just because Rollo oscillates between fear and anger just constantly, and he eats up the scenery. And so Costas had just said, you know, I've got a friend who I showed the script to anyway, and he really loves it. And the other producers were fighting for somebody else, and you know, the minute that he said that it was Edo Ross, I just, you know, it's perfect. It was perfect. He was the perfect gangster. He's like Edward G. Robinson on steroids. Just a big, thick bull's neck, and ugh, it was awesome.
I have a small question about what, I don't know, maybe it's an Easter egg or something. There's this phone booth, and there's some dirt on the window, and I kind of see a face in there. Did I have too much to drink yesterday?
Is this like 8 days of festival, 9 days of festival already?
Was it my face doing this?
I don't know.
No, I've never ever seen the face in the reflection. That's a good thing to look for.
It just must be me then.
I saw it too, and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be another ghost movie? Please, not another ghost movie.
Sort of. No, I've never ever seen the face. I'm curious to know who it was. Did you?
Oh, it was him.
It's probably one of the volunteer crew members. You can't get angry at them because we didn't pay them anything.
And then talking maybe a little bit about influences, I've heard people mentioning Lost Highway when they've seen it. So the Lynch's work and other time paradox books and movies, how much of it went into your actual script?
Not so much Lynch. I have kind of ambivalent feelings towards. I really like a lot that he does, and I really dislike a lot that he does. But often everything that's made that's surreal or that deals with surrealist principles in this time, it always gets compared back to David Lynch. The people that I was looking for most were. Kubrick has always been a favorite. There's a Japanese director named Teshi Gahara who's one of my favorites. Jean-Pierre Melville from France, and Louis Buñuel would have been. It's more of that kind of surrealism than Lynch's, but it was mostly for the inspirations were mostly from books and poster and artwork and things like that. There's a French writer named Alain Robbe-Grillet who wrote a story called Dans le Labyrinthe, which is one of my favorite short stories ever, and it takes a bit from that, and he's a really good. He made 2 films, L'année dernière en Marianne Bad et Hiroshima Mon Amour. So him. There was also actually a Belgian, René Magritte. I had paintings of his up on my wall, the L'Assassin Menacé, and he did a painting from the old comic book serials from Fantomas, which were French, which are some of my favorites, and they were huge with the surrealists in the 30s and things like that. And those were the kinds of inspirations that I took. I tried not to do much cinema because I wanted it to be a little bit different.
And now about your inspiration, what's coming up next for the future? Are you going to stay in the genre, or are you going to try different things?
I've got a stack of scripts about that's what I do. I became a director just because I write a lot and I didn't want anybody taking any credit for my ideas. So that's what I do. I write scripts, and there was one that's right before I was leaving for Belgium. It has some interest in it, and I want to make one as soon as I can. But the problem with I really dislike being a producer because it takes a lot of my time away from being creative, and I have to deal with money and people who deal with money, and it's not my skill set at all. So I'm stuck doing that right now and trying to get the movie sold so that I can start paying off my credit cards. But after that, I want to get into it as soon as I can. And everything that I do right, it's always got that kind of mishmash. There will always be something kind of horrifying in it, or a little bit supernatural, or those are the kinds of feelings of films that I like. But as for a certain genre, I mean, I couldn't peg nobody in any particular genre, and I don't think anything else that I would write would be in the strict thing. I've always wanted to write. Stephen King had said a nice quote about horror, is that his goal was to someday write a story that he was too afraid to finish. And I'd love to make a straight horror that scares the hell out of everyone. Those are the movies that I like. Last one was The Vanishing, the Dutch Vanishing. I'd like to make something like that.
That had a creepy ending. They really screwed up in the American remake, of course.
Oh, terrible. But when he takes off his shoes in the grave, I don't want to...
You want to run out of the theater.
I was standing up going, oh my, this is so great.
You also mentioned a little earlier that you worked as a prop master on The Lookout. That was a movie I also really liked a lot, especially the actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, he was great. He was a good guy too. That was made by Scott Frank, who was mostly a writer. He wrote Out of Sight and Minority Report, or he wrote the scripts for both of those. That was Philip Dick and Elmore Leonard, but that was his first attempt at directing, and he was a really nice guy. And that's one of the great things about being, or one of the reasons why I got into the below the line filmmaking, working on crews, is that I wanted to work in the trenches and see how the other generals deal with their troops before I ever started to order people around myself. So being able to be around people like that, really good directors, and getting a little bits of tips and where they might have gone wrong in their first times and things like that, it was very, very advantageous, and it's the reason why I was able to make a feature film without having done anything before that.
Peut-être que vous avez des questions entre-temps?
Misschien nog een laatste vraag uit het publiek, de question uit het publiek. Then I guess we'll finish it up here with my standard question, which has now become a double-parter since this festival. I always ask each director, actor, producer, what would be their dream project? You have unlimited funds, actors, books, screenplays, whatever you want. What would it be?
I just finished a script based on Fantomas, which I just had mentioned, and it's kind of a gothic serial killer movie about. I don't know if anybody knows about the story, but Fantomas was this almost superhuman Kaiser Soze-ish surrealist bad guy who was a maniac, and he did incredibly like over-the-top brutal things, and then really little brutal things too, to add insult to injury. And it was it becomes almost comedic in its overkill. And I wrote something like that. He's in the public domain right now, Fantomas, and so I would love to do something, a period, kind of a period 7 that takes place in the 1910s, right, or 20s, right before the First World War.
And then, of course, the second part of the question is the nightmare project. One day you wake up, there's a truck full of money. You just have to do it for the money.
Anything where a dog plays a sport. No, you couldn't find a truck big enough. Air Bud 3.
And I was so looking forward to that.
Synchronized swimming, Air Bud. No, that would be my nightmare project. I don't like dogs.
Okay, Mr. Linden, thank you very much for bringing your wonderful movie to this festival.
Thank you for showing my movie at this wonderful festival.
I hope you have a nice night. I hope you're staying for the Vampires Ball, and
I will be.
Lost.
I'll be out and about. The last 3 days have been gorgeous. I've been in. I was in Brussels once before this 12 years ago when I was in high school. And I was here for 2 days, and one of the days I slept out in a garden outside. So this trip has been so much better than the last one.
Okay, thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of your trip.
Merci beaucoup.
Good luck with all your future projects, and we hope to show them here later on.
Oui, moi aussi, moi aussi.
So, big round of applause, Mr. Sean Linden. Er is aantekeningen-sessie, session de dédicace, donc de signatures, people who want stuff signed, underwear signed, now's the time.